Hi everyone, welcome to another episode for psychological theater at our channel. And in the last video I discussed, or we looked at some vitamin C. So as I was saying, that in the last video we saw how observation and free energy are connected, and we also tried to discuss that how the process of thinking involves the use of this free energy, and the stronger the pattern of thinking becomes, the more difficult it becomes to observe something clearly. So today I would look at it just from a different point of view, and it wouldn't be like a very different, but just change of perception, so as to say how I'm looking at it. That today I want to look at it in the way that all the conclusions that we have in our life, all the prejudice that we have in our life, all the things that we keep fixed in our life, those things distort our observation. Now, I'm speaking strictly in the psychological terms, not you keeping your chair fixed in your house, which is completely fine. So, psychologically, is this statement true, that conclusion distorts our observation? Now, what I mean from it is that, or let's look at it first of all, from a simple example, like what is a conclusion? Now, a conclusion is sort of an end result of an experience. Okay, so you experience something. It could be the taste of a chocolate, the music of Mozart, or anything else, and on the basis of the experience, then you draw a conclusion that, okay, this experience was like this thing is like this is like that. So what we are trying to propose, just a second, my microphone is a little, yeah. So what we are proposing is that when you make such conclusions about anything, whether it's about your life, whether it's about some important decision of your life, whether it's about your relationship, whether it's about your country or anything, then these conclusions also affect the way you observe things. Let's look at it from this point of view, that if I'm a strong nationalist, if I'm a strong American, if I feel like strongly I'm American, then my observation also becomes American. Then most of the time in my life I observe as an American citizen, or as an American, and which could be applied, just America is just an example, it could be any nation. If I think, or if I have concluded that I'm an angry person, I'm a person with a lot of anger, then all my observation and even my life actions have the effect of that conclusion. I don't know if you have seen it or not, or even from very simple examples that when you have if you have seen where you have to choose your country over someone else's country, maybe in a field of sports, that you feel nice when your country is winning, and you feel sad when your country is not winning, or something like this. So all these conclusions, whether these are as bigger labels in our life, that I'm a nationalist, or I'm of this religion, or this like this or not that, all these conclusions drastically affect the way we look at life, the way we observe life, and then eventually they affect our actions. That if you believe in the caste system and you have a conclusion that you are of a certain caste, then your way of perceiving the other person from a different caste it already has the effect of that caste system on it. Your observation itself is like, that's the person from that caste, or that's the person from that religion, or that's the person from that country. He's a British, he's a German, he's a Muslim, he's a Christian, he's a Hindu, could be anything. So a conclusion is sort of like it's like a label that we are putting on things, like concluded this is this, concluded this is this. Now the danger of such thing is that the moment the mind concludes something, it could be about anything, then after the conclusion happens, mind stops observing that thing anymore, which is also logical from the point of view of the mind, that the mind thinks that I have concluded something about this thing, so it means there is no need to further observe it. So in that sense, the faster you conclude something while observing anything, the sooner your mind kind of stops observing it. And because logically as well, the mind doesn't feel the need to observe it anymore, because it has concluded that this thing is like this. The tree is green. I have concluded I don't need to see it anymore. So that is the general pattern of humanity, or the general pattern of even in animals. It could be seen that some conclusion is made, and then they are living according to that conclusion. Now, what's the problem with this whole system of conclusion? On one hand, it feels safe to conclude something, like you feel like you know the thing, like you concluded that the person in front of you is a very angry person, is a very jealous person. So next time you meet this person, you think that somehow you know this person, and somehow, I'm sorry, this microphone is not behaving nicely today. So somehow you feel like there is some sort of back information present with you about some things. Like the conclusion is not essentially just about a person. It could also be about an object, about an event, about a happening. Okay? So in that sense, the conclusion already is on the one hand making us feel a little secure by the obvious fact that you know something about this person or about whatever it is. But on the other hand, it also changes or distorts your observation in the present. Okay? So if you are a strong nationalist and you observe a person from another country, then you always look at that person from the nationalist point of view. Like it becomes very difficult to see the other person just as a human. If I'm of religion X and someone from religion Y comes in front of me, then my observation straight away points this out, that this person is from this religion. Okay? It becomes extremely difficult to observe this person without any conclusion. Just to observe that person in that moment, like how this person is behaving or whatever. So, from an intellectual point of view, from an intellectual understanding, we can see that conclusion or this kind of prejudice or this kind of preconceived notions are becoming the bridges on which our observation observes. Okay? So, which is why it becomes very difficult to observe something as it is, which we also discussed in the last video. You see, life is always in a flux. Life, or existence, let's say, put it like this. Existence is always changing. From the cells in your body to the supernova or the nebula in the cosmos or the sun itself. Everything is changing. So, when you see or when you observe that everything is actually changing, then it's not so wise to keep fixed conclusions. You understand? You concluded this person is bad person, okay? Maybe after a month this person has changed and now he has become a nice person. You concluded this person as a thief, but maybe he has now been to the jail or whatever, he has transformed and now he is no longer a thief. So these are just random examples, okay? It's possible, it's not possible. But the whole point is, when the whole existence is in a flux, then, or let's use easier word, that when the whole existence is in movement, then to be static in your observation is stupidity. Okay? Because situations are changing, people are changing, matter itself is changing. So, to observe a moving object, you also need to move. If you become static, if you become stationary in your observation, then the thing has already changed, but you are looking at it from the eyes of the past, or from the eyes of the conclusion that you had drawn a week ago, 10 minutes ago, or two seconds ago, whatever it is. Okay? It could be about anyone, it could be about anything. So, the human mind is in a habit of making conclusion, because in conclusion there is a security that I know. When you conclude something about anything, it also gives you some kind of satisfaction that I know about this thing. And knowing always feels better than not knowing. Like, the human mind is always afraid of the unknown. It's like an obvious fact. Whenever something happens which you are not able to understand, or you're not able to grasp, something unknown, you're sitting in a room and suddenly you hear a sound and you don't know what it is. Suddenly you are like uncomfortable. So the mind is always afraid of the unknown, which is why it tries to keep its roots in the known. Because in the known, it thinks it's secure. Because the mind thinks that it knows, that's why it is secure. It is just like knowing the danger of a tiger. Maybe when humans were in their early stages, they made the conclusion that tiger is dangerous, snake is dangerous, okay? Now this kind of knowledge was trustworthy, was comforting for the mind, that, okay, if I have this knowledge, then it saves me, which it does as well. To know that a bus will kill you is a good knowledge, you should know that. It's self-protection. But then, eventually, if you start keeping knowledge about everything, and especially about a thing which is not static, or a thing which is living, if you start to make conclusions about people, and people are changing all the day, We say people don't change and blah blah blah. In that sense, that's also true, that people like to live in a certain pattern of life. Okay, but there is always a chance that maybe someone changes. The possibility is always there. Okay, so to have conclusions is, in that sense, becomes a little dangerous. That this conclusion shows me things as I want them to see. Okay, the conclusion shows me that the human being in front of me is a British or a French. Okay, it doesn't show me that it's a human being. Okay, the fact of the moment, the fact of the present is that you have a human being in front of you. Okay, it's different that this human being also believes that he's French or whatever, but for your point of view, it's not so. It is not so safe to assume anything. Okay, which is why we face the problem of shocks in our life. We make conclusions about people, and eventually this person does something against that conclusion, and then we feel hurt, or we get a shock. We get a shock in a form of hurt, fear, happy. It could be any kind of shock, but anything which happens against or away from your conclusion gives you shock, and a shock is generally not nice for the body itself. Like it damages your brain, it damages your nervous system. That's why it's called a shock. So in that sense, if you start to observe this, that it's logical to have conclusions about certain things, like it's nice to conclude that this is healthy food and I'm eating it, and this kind of basic living conclusions. But to have conclusions about people, to have conclusions about things which are changing over time, is not so safe in that sense. Like it eventually you are preparing yourself to be shocked. Okay, this shock could be a positive shock, it could be a negative shock, it could be any kind of shock. Okay, so your conclusion is deciding how you observe. Try to observe the fact. Try to observe this fact that you are looking according to your conclusions. Try to see, when you observe according to your conclusion, then your action inevitably comes according to your conclusion. Okay? When a British man is talking with a Frenchman, the tone is already, you can see the conversation developing, and if you closely observe these two people, this nationalist factor somewhere feels it. I have seen it multiple times, and the British and French is just an example. It could be any nation. I'm just saying it because usually the neighboring nations are the ones which are always in this position of fighting, so as to say, or in this position of being jealous from each other, So look at it in your life, okay? That how many conclusions you have. About what you have conclusion. How this conclusion is affecting the way you live your life. How this conclusion is affecting the way you act. How this conclusion is making you do things. How this conclusion makes you angry. How this conclusion becomes the source of conflict with another human being. Okay? So, when you would observe it carefully, you would start seeing these distortions, that how your conclusions are showing you things as you want them to see. You are not seeing things as they are. Okay? It's very human to run for pleasure and avoid pain. That's what our whole life is in a nutshell. So this conclusion also makes you do this again and again. You have concluded what things are pleasurable, what things are nice, what things are bad. So for your whole life, you keep avoiding the bad and keep running behind the good. And what is the good? That you have defined yourself, right? So in a way, you are self-praising your definition. You are serving, or you are living your own defined definitions. Okay? We never say, is there something good by itself? Okay? We always have good in relation to something. It's a relative definition in general, right? Which is also a big problem with meditation, usually, what people do. So observe how this conclusion is distorting everything. How all these conclusions that we have about our parents, about our brother, sister, about our teachers, about our friends, we have conclusion about all of them, you know. Observe how these conclusions are steering your relationships, you know. How the conclusion you made about your partner, how the conclusion you've made about your children is making you behave, is making you act, is making you treat them the way your conclusion has defined it. Okay? It requires a little bit deep observation, but it's not something like it's not something very difficult, so as to say. You can observe it in your life, that how your own definitions, how your own ideas are coming in the way of your own relationships. How all these things, and once the brain and the mind are in the habit of making conclusions, then it becomes your second nature to conclude everything. This is like this, this is like this, this is like this, this is like this. And then all these conclusions, this is like this, this, without you knowing, without you asking them, come up. Okay? It's like you see someone from a different caste, you see someone from a different country, you look at it, and straight away in your mind, it's there. Ah, this is the person from this caste. Ah, this is the person from this country. Ah, that's the Frenchman. Ah, that's like this. So you don't realize how these conclusions are becoming automatic. You know, how these conclusions are becoming your behavior. How your whole behavior is eventually being defined by your conclusions. Okay? And as we talked about in the last video about this free energy, that these conclusions are consuming our free energy. These conclusions are the reason why we cannot gather enough energy to have a clear perception. These conclusions are the reason of our confusion, you know. Yesterday the person slapped me, I concluded he's a bad person. 1 month later the person comes again, says sorry, treats me nicely. Now I'm confused. Is he a bad person? Is he a good person? You understand? Your conclusion says he's bad. His present behavior says he's good. How should you decide? How should you act? So conclusions will always be in conflict with the present, to put it like this. And the reason for that is because everything is changing. Nothing is in that sense constant. Okay? So you make the conclusion, but by the time you use the conclusion, the thing has already changed. Okay? It doesn't happen with the table, but it happens a lot with humans. It happens a lot with maybe some animals as well. So don't conclude so easily about someone, especially in case of living things. Don't conclude about something like this. Always be ready to observe in a fresh way, you know, because always remember that the thing might have changed or the person might have changed. So the conclusions which were once a security, that a tiger is dangerous, the snake is dangerous, are becoming the problem of conflict between human relationships now. Okay? This person is not nice. I will not have nice relationship with him. I didn't feel nice while having coffee with this person. I don't have nice relationship. So all these conclusions, you see, are defining our relationships. I don't know. So it just requires a little observation. It just requires a little awareness of yourself. Now the problem is, because we are already so busy with all the things that we have defined as important, becoming successful, having a lot of money, having a lot of respect, having power, having all these factors which we ourselves have defined as important, and then we are running behind them. It's like self-praising. You first define what is great, then you do it, and then you say, look, I have done a great thing. I don't know if you get the joke of it, if you get the trick of it. The mind plays the trick on itself. It defines something as great by itself, then achieves it or tries to achieve it, and then says, look how great I am because I have done this great thing. Okay? Which is why for everyone greatness is different, because they have defined greatness in their own terms. Everyone has defined greatness in their own terms. So try to observe this, try to be aware of this when you are living every day, that you are being affected by your conclusions, you are being driven by your conclusions. Okay? And when you would be aware of them, when you would see not the help they provide in certain cases, but also the danger, the extreme danger of conclusions, especially in terms of human relationship, then you would start becoming aware about them slowly. Then you will start becoming sensitive to them. And the wrong use of conclusion, you would see, would slowly go down. Like, you would not randomly do it as people are generally in the habit of. So please observe this. It's a request, and don't say it's wrong, don't say it's right. It's of no value to say anything like this. The only thing that we can do is to try it. You are very busy, you're not interested in this, you don't want this or that. All these excuses are fine when you're giving it to yourself or to your family members. But life doesn't care about your excuses. Life goes on. And as it goes on, you have to face situations where you concluded something about some person, but this person was not like this. And then there's a conflict. And when there's a conflict, you have a problem. You understand? And because we have problems almost every day in our life, small problem, big problem, it means these conclusions are affecting our problems, are affecting our life more than we actually assume. That maybe the contribution of the problems created by our conclusions is a little high. It's a high contribution from these things. So don't be afraid, don't be concerned, don't make another conclusion about this situation. That's all I want to say. Observe yourself, observe your behavior, how you talk with your parents, how you talk with your child, how you treat your wife, how you treat your colleagues, how you treat your boss. Observe all of this. And while observing all of this, you would see how many places you are putting conclusion. My wife is like this, why is she behaving like this today? She was like that, she's not. My boss is doing this, but what he was supposed to do. All these contradictions will be visible to you every time, because life will show you everything every day, actually. So in that sense, as you observe the impact of conclusions on your life, you would become sensitive to them, because you would see that they are more than just important. They are very important at the moment, the way we are choosing to live our lives. So don't just let it go. Don't just say, okay, fine, maybe I should do it, I should not. Just give it a try, because it's your life. If you're not serious about your life, I don't know what else you would be serious about. So see this. See the pattern of your own functioning. See how you function. See how your whole day, your whole functioning of the day is dependent on conclusions. As yesterday I'm sorry, as in the last video we said it was dependent on thinking and the free energy was not available. In the same way, we are saying it from a little different way. Okay, when we will discuss thinking, I think all these things will become more clear because it would join everything together. But for today, just try to see this, that having conclusion is not the right thing always. In some cases maybe it works, but in most cases it doesn't work as well. Now that is intelligence, to know where to use a conclusion and where not to use a conclusion. You understand? So that's the whole point of it. That's the whole gist of it. At the moment we are using one key in every lock, which is not so intelligent way of living. So if there is any question regarding this, please write in the comments and I would love to hear from you. And from next videos, let's go more deeper in these things, especially in thinking. I will try to make multiple videos on thinking and try to show a different point of view than what we already have about thinking. So let's do that, and have a beautiful day to everyone, and thanks a lot for listening. Thank you.